My name is Bernie Bennett. I am the Public Information Officer for the Annapolis Police Department, and we are here to talk about the incident that took place in Annapolis last night. The press conference will begin with Chief Ed Jackson. We are also joined today by Governor Wes Moore and County Executive Stuart Pittman, as well as Mayor Gavin Buckley. We are also joined by Senator Sarah Elfreth and Delegate Shanika Henson, as well as members of the City Council, Alderman Rob Savage and Alderwoman Pindell Charles. And we are streaming this live on Facebook, as you know. We're also joined by members of our team, our Commander of Operations, Captain Lamar Howard, and our Commander of Patrol, Captain Justin Kleindest. So what will happen is we will begin with the Chief. We will talk to our dignitaries following that. We will open it up to your questions after that. And let's begin. Let's begin with Chief Ed Jackson.
Good afternoon. I'll start by giving an overview of the events that occurred on Sunday, June 11th at 7:50 p.m. On Sunday evening at 7:50 p.m., my police officers received a call to the 1000 block of Paddington Place off of Edgewood Road in the city of Annapolis for a report of a mass shooting incident with casualties. When first responders arrived at the scene, the first responders being the Annapolis City Fire Department, the paramedics, and Annapolis PD arrived at the scene, they found 3 deceased victims. 6 people in total were shot. 3 were deceased at the scene, declared dead at the scene, and others were taken to area hospitals, 2 by airlift and 1 by ambulance. The 3 hospitalized victims are in stable condition as of this press conference. What we didn't have tonight, and I'm going to talk about right now, is the names and where the victims are from. The first victim is Nicholas Morales. He's a 55-year-old Hispanic male of Odenton, Maryland. The second one is Mario Antonio Morales Ruiz. He's also an Hispanic male from Annapolis, 27 years old. And then the third deceased victim is Christian Marlon Segovia, 25, of Annapolis. He's a 25-year-old Hispanic male. When police arrived, they were able to take a person of interest into custody. Since then, the victim has been charged by the Anne Arundel County State's Attorney. He's been charged with, well, his name is Charles Robert Smith. He's Charles Robert Smith. He lives in the 1000 block of Paddington Place. He's a male white, 45 years of age. That's Charles Robert Smith, 45, of Annapolis. He lives in the area off the 1000 block, or in the 1000 block of Paddington Place. He was charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder, 3 counts of first-degree assault, 3 counts of attempted murder, and use of handgun in the commission of a crime. He's currently being booked at Jennifer Road facility and charged with those offenses. Also, as we speak, I'd like to thank our federal partners. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, along with the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, and the U.S. Marshal Service are working very closely with us. The FBI is processing the scene for us, and the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives is primarily dealing with the ballistic evidence. Again, this is still a very fluid and ongoing investigation. There's still a lot of questions that we have that have not been answered yet. We know that the weapons used was a long handgun and a semi-automatic handgun. I will stay away from the make and models of those 2 because those weapons are still being analyzed, and I don't want to disclose that at this time because it's still evidence being processed. Again, as we speak, They're still at the scene. We're probably going to hold the crime scene for another 24 hours. We have search warrants for several residents in the area in the effort to obtain evidence. And at a future date, we'll be able to, once the case is ready for prosecution, we'll be able to provide more information. We're currently preparing for some type of follow-up with Anne Arundel County's crisis response, along with my community outreach. We want to go back down there in the days ahead, the days and week ahead, to provide any type of outreach services to the community. We know a lot of people, particularly young people and old people for that fact, have been traumatized by the events. Annapolis still remains a safe city. I want to highlight that point. I can't underscore that enough. This was an isolated incident. It was contained immediately. Last night when I said there was no threat to the public, we had a strong person of interest in custody, and we didn't have any other information, credible information, that there'd be any other threats. And so we still believe that was the only person involved in this in terms of causing the death of those 3 individuals. And so Annapolis still remains one of the safest cities in the region. So I want the public to understand that it's no concern that there will be any other violence. Of course, we were always on top of it and do our very best to make sure that our neighborhoods, all communities, are covered to the best of our ability. Now I'll turn it over to the governor. Thank you again, Governor, for attending.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for being here as we continue to monitor the developments surrounding the shooting that took place last evening here in Annapolis. And I want to thank the chief and also thank all the many brave members of the Annapolis Police Department, all of our first responders, and all of their partners. It was these individuals who rushed to the scene immediately when this heinous crime happened and acted decisively. To County Executive Stuart Pittman, to Mayor Buckley, and to all of our local officials, I want to say thank you to you all as well. And I want you and your teams to know that you have my full support, that you have my office's full support, and that the entire Annapolis community has our full support in this dark hour. A la comunidad latina, nuestros corazones están rotos con los suyos y trabajemos juntos para traer justicia y paz. As we speak, my office is moving in coordination with our local, our state, and our federal partners, and we will ensure that all authorities have the resources that they need to investigate this heinous act and support the people of Annapolis. Many brave men and women raised their hands to serve and protect our community. They are the first responders who in many cases have not slept since last night, and they continue to exemplify heroism throughout their ongoing response efforts. The people who responded instantaneously to a terrible tragedy, another mass shooting in our country, and this time, it happened here, in our state. We know that 3 of the victims of the shooting have passed away, and we know that others are fighting for their lives as we speak. And I pray for God's healing mercies on them. And I pray that God guides the hands of the doctors and the medical personnel that are working on them. And my heart goes out to their family and to their loved ones. And for all Marylanders, I know that many people might be feeling numb right now. Numb to the violence that we see in our streets and across the country. Numb to the news stories about more lives being cut short. But we cannot allow that numbness to take hold. We will refuse to be apathetic in the face of horror. We will refuse to say that these problems are too big or too tough to solve, that this is a difficult moment for the city of Annapolis and for the state of Maryland. And it's a difficult time for our country. It's a difficult time that we must overcome, and we can only do that if we stand together and if we stand united. So today, Annapolis grieves, but this pain is accompanied by purpose, knowing that in response, we will choose to do more than give hearts and thoughts and prayers, because that's simply not enough. We will choose to tackle the issues of violence in our communities head on, unapologetically and unafraid, because this moment demands that we be fearless. We will choose the path of safety and the path of solutions on behalf of all Marylanders who stand united with Annapolis today. And with that, I want to turn it over to my partner with a dear and a deep sense of thanks, our County Executive, Stuart Pittman.
Well, I want to thank Governor Moore for being here and checking in. And it's not the first time that he's checked in. And I want to thank Mayor Buckley also for always being a partner and being my partner in this battle against gun violence. To the victims' families in that home, estamos aquí para ustedes. Y somos familia. To all of the Latino community in Anne Arundel County, somos familia. To our crisis response teams, which is our police department and our mental health agency who work together, who were there all night, as well as those who speak Spanish, able to speak to the victims and the families. Thank you for your work. And all the Anne Arundel County Police Department. Chief Atwood let me know last night that we were moving folks from their shifts into Annapolis to cover while the Annapolis team was at the site. So thank you, all the first responders. I can't help but ignore the fact that Rick Hutzel, the former editor of the Capital Gazette newspaper, is here, and that it was 5 years ago that we had a mass shooting in Annapolis in that newsroom. And I and every candidate at the time who was running for office was asked by Rick Hutzel in the Capital Gazette to say what we would do to prevent a mass shooting from ever happening in this town again. And so I apologize that we did not stop mass shootings in this town. They have not stopped in this country. We have worked together, and we will continue to work together. I was thrilled to see the governor sign legislation that the General Assembly passed this year to address the fact that the Supreme Court of the United States made Maryland's gun laws no longer constitutional, in their opinion. So we are addressing that at the state level. I've worked with Mayor Buckley and our gun violence prevention task force and our gun violence intervention team to reduce gun violence, but I don't think there's anything that we as a local jurisdiction could have done to prevent weapons of the kind that were used. I don't know exactly what kind they were, but they were powerful enough to do a huge amount of damage on the front lawn of a home in a quiet neighborhood in a short amount of time. And weapons like this have no place in our neighborhoods. They do not resolve conflicts, and they make the job of law enforcement much more dangerous than it would be otherwise. So I would like to bring Mayor Buckley up to share his thoughts.
So this is a very, very sad day for the state capitol and for Maryland. But look at the response around us. I was getting calls, messages from our county executive, our delegates, senators, our governor, to ask what they could do to help. Because for us, this is personal. This is not who we are. On a day that a parent's their proudest moment is their kid's graduation from high school. And on a graduation day, on a block party, where you're around family, where you should feel safe, this kind of violence happened. We try to teach our children that violence is not the answer. But so quickly we turn to violence, and when you turn violent and you have access to guns, this is the kind of thing that happens. So we have to address this as a nation. Maryland is going to lead the way to try to roll some of this back, be respectful of gun ownership, but honestly, how much firepower do we need in a community? We will be working on these issues together. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to these families who are devastated. There are many people on that block who will never be the same. The people that live in that diverse community are our family. They're our children. We should be taking care of them. We need to do better. And with that, I'll hand it over. Thank you.
The mayor just addressed what a number of witnesses had spoken with us about. There was a party and there was a conflict apparently about a parking spot. Can you characterize some of what may have occurred out there, what the investigators are telling you about this?
Well, we know that those things did occur, but I'm not going to get into the motive of the shooting. I'm not even positioned to say that the shooting and the homicides were directly related to that. You know, something happened and that caused the suspect, or now defendant, to use deadly force and to cause that kind of damage. But yes, sir, there was, we've heard that information's been on social media, but I don't want to speculate. We're still very, very much trying to find out what was the motivation behind this, and we are not poised to say that that was the motivation at this time.
Is there any evidence that these people knew each other, for instance? And I'm going to school with someone.
He lived in close proximity, but we haven't determined that yet, what the relationship was, and I'm really not poised to say that at this time.
Chief, just for clarification, you mentioned as you were announcing those deceased and the suspect, and I thought I heard you say that the suspect was one of the people wounded?
No, sir. The suspect, we have no evidence that he was wounded. No, sir.
Chief, over here, Kate Mark, WMAR-TV. Yesterday you said you believe there was an exchange of gunfire. Today you said there was two types of weapons that were recovered. Did they both belong to the single suspect, or was there a second individual who was shot the second weapon?
Yes, Kate, we have, Mr. Marr, we haven't determined that yet. Yesterday, we were speculating that may have been a possibility based on what we initially saw, but now that the Federal Bureau of Investigation and Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms are evaluating this evidence, that's yet to be determined. We do know that there was more than one handgun, a long gun, and a short gun, and whether there's exchange of gunfire, autopsy, and other forensic evidence will determine that. So I have to get back to you at a future date.
Did the shooting happen, were the shots fired from inside the home towards people outside, giving direction?
That we're still trying to determine. We do know that there was a busted window, and I don't know whether that was firing from the outside. All indications that the suspect was on his property and fired towards the victims. We don't know what that exchange looks like now. We still have a lot more to do. We have to review possible video cameras, ring-style cameras, and so we still have a lot of work to do so that I can definitively, state that, but we just don't know yet.
I know you said you don't want to speculate right now, but a lot of neighbors are saying that this was over a parking space. Just your thoughts on using this kind of firepower?
Well, it goes back to what the mayor said, and I couldn't agree wholeheartedly. This is not a Second Amendment issue. We have far too many high-powered weapons that are in the hands of people with rage, mental illness, substance abuse, and you mix those two together. I mean, what good's going to come out of that, you know? And so we're living at a time. I mean, I hear it every single day. You know, it's related to COVID, or it's related to the economy. It's related to all those things. Well, I just happen to think that crime, this type of crime, is a social problem. It's not a law enforcement problem. It's a social problem. And we have to do something to mitigate these use of handguns and availability of handguns, you know. So, I mean, everything from ghost guns to all types of high-powered weapons, we see it all the time. And so, who knows what the motivation was.
Were the guns reloaded? Did he go back and reload a second time or a third time? Do you know that information?
Say that again?
Were the guns legally owned by the suspect?
That's yet to be determined. We're still investigating that. We're dependent on the ATF to really dig into that. Sometimes they are difficult to trace. Sometimes the ownership is not readily available. It depends on a lot.
And did he go back and reload? Did he have a lot of ammunition with him? Can you
That, well,
elaborate on?
no, I can't elaborate on that. He surrendered peacefully, without incident. That's all we can say now. Like I said, we're searching the house now. We got a warrant from a district court judge to do a search warrant, and so we're trying to find all of that out now.
What are the conditions of the victim? Is your investigation looking
Say
at
that
what are
again?
the conditions of the victim?
The 3 victims that survived are stable, and it looks like that they're going to survive. We're grateful for that. They are all, I believe, at Maryland Shock Trauma, and they're all in stable condition and expected to survive.
Chief, are you looking at, does the investigation include looking into whether this may have been racially motivated? And if you determine it was, will these charges be upgraded to include a hate crime?
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly correct. It's too early to tell what the motivation was, but if it is a hate crime, that falls under the U.S. Code, and it'll probably be prosecuted in federal court. Because of any hate crime, especially when a murder is involved, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United States Department of Justice, and the U.S. Attorney will probably take a look at that. I'm not speaking for them, but hate crimes are, in this case, would fall under the federal statutes.
And it is part of the investigation, I think you said that to me.
Yeah, we're not ruling anything out, in other words. We're not ruling anything out. I mean, ostensibly, our suspect is a white male and the 3 victims are Latino, but we can't draw any inferences from that. You know, we have to look at every possible angle. And as I was saying, Kate, that at the time, we really don't know. I'm not withholding anything. We really don't know whether that was the motivation or not.
Have police had any history with Mr. Smith before, or is this the first time?
I know since I've been here, I don't know of any encounters with him. We're still delving into that now. But since I've been here, I'm not familiar with him.
Are the victims all related? The 2 victims have paralysis, and maybe the 3rd victim?
Yeah, one was the father and son. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One was the father and son.
Is Segovia related to them as well?
Not that I'm aware of.
Sir, you said you turned yourself in peacefully. Did he confess? Did he speak to a motive at all?
No, ma'am. He just surrendered peacefully. And that's all we have.
Chief, you mentioned the amount of firepower. How many firearms were included in the home, and how many bullets were fired?
That's yet to be determined. The search warrant is still going on now.
Who fired the first shot?
We know that, only thing we know is that the person that we have in custody fired shots. We don't know whether first shots are fired. That's yet to be determined. We're still going to look at possible video cameras and interview witnesses. What we're doing now, we had 3 decedents at the scene. That took us the better part of the entire night to make sure that we get any type of forensic evidence from the bodies of those individuals. We had to process the scene outside. We spent the better part of this morning looking for spent shell casings. And so now that we've stabilized the scene, as I stated before, we're going to hold the crime scene and remain on premises until we are satisfied that the entire premises has been gone over. So a lot of the questions that you have to ask is yet to be determined as of this press conference.
Can you clarify the gun stuff, please? You mentioned a handgun, and then what you described as a long handgun. And I know we can't get into makes and models, but that can confuse people.
Yes, a sidearm, a semi-automatic sidearm is much like what I'm wearing now. You know, it can easily be concealed. You know, you can tuck it in your waistband, put it in your coat. That's a sidearms, right? That was one of them, and then a long gun could be any type of weapons. I don't want to speculate as to what type of weapon or divulge what type of weapon it was.
But you use the word handgun on that second one, so it's one of these.
Handguns are modified. Yes, sir.
Handguns with a brace kind of thing. It looks like a rifle. Help us understand that.
Well, it's just a long, only thing I can say right now is just a long gun. We have a regular handgun, then we have a long gun, a modified version of a gun with a long barrel. That's the only thing I'll say right now.
But it's characterized as a handgun.
I'm characterizing this as a long gun, that yet to be determined. Alcohol,
Sorry to be
tobacco?
confused.
No, sir. That'll be something that we can disclose later on.
Was that fully automatic?
We don't know that either.
But it was semi, the second one was also a semi.
The handgun was a semi-automatic. We don't know what the other one was.
Did the victims live at that house, or were they guests of the graduation?
Some of them lived in the block, and other ones lived in the county. They're all from Anne Arundel County, but not all of them lived in the block. But in the area, yes, sir.
It looked like there were a lot of people there last night. Any kind of estimate as to how many people were there?
When I got there, and I can say when I got there, there was still quite a few people out. There was easily 150, 200 people out. It was a very, understandably, a very active scene, a very volatile scene. You know, when people start shooting and you have the events that occurred there, people are scrambling, running for cover, trying to rescue their children and loved ones. So it was a very volatile scene. I'd like to thank the men and women of the Annapolis Police Department, along with Anne Arundel County, the Sheriff's Office, and the Maryland State Police, because they did a very wonderful job in stabilizing the community very rapidly.
I have one more follow-up from what you said yesterday. Yesterday you said you believe at least one home was hit by gunfire. Is that still the case, or have you found?
I haven't been informed that any other homes were hit as of this press conference.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And also, just in, the suspect, Mr. Charles Smith, he's been held without bond. He's been held at the Jennifer Road Detention Center. Charles Robert Smith, I stated his name earlier, 45. The court commissioner just held him without bond, so he won't be released.
Chief, were there any record of responses to 1004 Addington, or complaints about parking on the street, crowding on the street?
We're looking into that. We're looking into that. I don't know if were there any calls. Where's my chief of patrol? Were there any calls leading up to that we're aware of?
Nothing significant that we're
No, nothing. And I checked last night, and I couldn't find anything, but I would make sure my chief of patrol could answer that. Anything? Okay. I'm sorry, Rick. I think that's. I don't think that there was, but I'll double check, and if you can find any calls, I'll make sure that you get the information. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have some press releases for you in the back of the room, and also my business card if you have any further questions. Again, this is an ongoing investigation. Details are forthcoming as we proceed with our federal partners. So I'll try to update you all as much as possible. And if you have any questions, again, please contact me here. And again, I'm Bernie Bennett, Public Information Officer for the Annapolis Police Department. And we'd like to thank our elected officials for coming out today and being part of this. And we will do the best we can. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day. Thank you so much, sir.